أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So what we'll do is we'll continue with some of the verses here on in chapter 3 of the Holy Quran, and I've set up here a few verses that we will look at. But before we look at those verses, let me firstly give you an introduction to these verses. So we will look at Surah 3, chapter 3 in other words, Ali Imran, and we will continue until 31. Those are 11 verses, or 13 verses in fact, that cover a particular theme. And it's a very relevant theme. It's a theme that is instructional for us in our lives, in our society. And it's a series of verses that we can really do a critique of the society in which we live in, or which the world, modern secular society that we are familiar with. So these verses will allow us to critique our society in light of the view of the Holy Quran. And so before I go through the verses, or I show you the verses, let me give you an introduction. Now, Western modern secular society is based on a few core principles. Number one, it's based on individual rights. So all rights, all law is crafted or created around the interests of the individual. And so the basic rule in society is that you have all the rights that you can have to give you absolute freedom, providing that those rights do not infringe on the rights of a next person. So that is one of the core ideas within modern Western secular society. So it's based on the interests of the individual. It's one of the core principles. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Also, it's based on the idea of a society that is structured around the best average interests of everyone. So that is the second principle, is that we are structured in a pragmatic way. The society is structured in a pragmatic way. The challenge, of course, is that the rights of the individual often coincide or align with the strength or the relative power of the individual in society to demand or to lay claim to those rights. So when you have weaker members of society unable or incapable of laying claim to their rights, then those are generally the individuals that will become the weak in society. And to extend that particular problem, those who are strong in society will have the problem where they will be able to access generally more rights in that society. Do you understand? So you have a situation where the weak will not really be able to claim or lay claim to their rights, and the strong will be able and capable of going beyond what is due to them, and in fact impinging on the rights of the weaker members of society. That is one of the key problems within Western secular society. So what you have is you have a gradual shift of power towards a strong and powerful elite. I'm still giving you an introduction to these verses now. Now, what the Quran does, now I want to use the term the transcendent Quranic society. It's the society that the Quran postulates and calls for, that transcends individual interests. You know, modern Western secular society based on the interests of the individual. The Islamic or the Quranic society based on transcendent values, not just individual or personal interest. Remember, when we deal with a Marxist society, it is still the interests of the individual, but here the interests of the masses, of the majority, are weighed heavier in the scale. So although in a Marxist society it's an attempt to shift power from the individual to the group, we still have the group then being the carrier of the interests of society. And so if you have a group that becomes powerful, or if you have a majority that becomes powerful, if you have a certain class that becomes powerful in a Marxist society, it will still impinge on the rights of the smaller groups, of the minority, or of individuals within that society. So within the Western liberal society, the individual is all powerful. In the Marxist society, the group is all powerful. In both cases, people's interests predominate. Now let's move a bit to this particular set of verses that we will look at now. In the ideal society which our Holy Quran, the word of Allah, the word of God, postulates, the idea of vesting interests with people, or vesting the best interests of society with the best interests of people, is abandoned. So the idea that society will be good if people's interests are addressed, that idea is abandoned. The Quran does not make that a basis of a happy, ideal society. The Quran actually, in fact, shifts the frame of reference, because in Western secular society, the frame of reference, the board on which we work, on which we plan, is the world of existence, of life, of the living. That is the board, or the frame of reference that we operate on. In the Islamic society, in the ideal Quranic transcendent society, the frame of reference incorporates the dead, the living, as well as the unborn. It includes the mundane or the present world, and a world that is announced to us that is to come. So far beyond just looking at life here in this world and our existence here, the Quran looks at those before us, those who are here now, and those who will come after us. It also incorporates the world now and the world that will come in the year after. So that is the frame of reference. It's way beyond what the Western secular society is. Now, obviously, if you're watching this video, you're going to tell me, well, I just don't believe in all that. We might not have all those who are like us, lovers and adherents of the Holy Book. So their argument will be that, well, what about if you don't believe in the hereafter? You don't believe in God. You don't believe in all of that. We argue that this particular paradigm that the Quran comes as a paradigm, and the paradigm has consistency. The paradigm itself, the belief or the reality that there is a world now and a world to come, that they are the seen and the unseen. That whole paradigm is a model that is presented to us. And the Quran sees it as sufficient that there will be a party of humanity that will affirm that paradigm. And the ideal Quran society is the society of those who affirm the paradigm of the Quran and then become the vanguard of society. So not necessarily imposing the paradigm, but just society allows those who affirm the paradigm of the Quran and allows that paradigm to become the paradigm of society. So let us look at that paradigm. Let us look at that paradigm. Before you shoot it down, we here, many of us, are committed to the paradigm of the Quran, to the logic and to the reality and to the model which the Quran presents. But we are together here. We affirm. We are those who affirm. We are the mu'mineen, as the Quran refers to those who affirm the paradigm of truth and the existence of the Supreme Creator. Before you criticize it, I want you to firstly look at the arguments presented in these verses. And so I will move on to these verses now. Now, unlike previous times, I will just basically give you a playback which I've created, which will make it a little bit different. Let's see how it sounds. From chapter 3, verse 18, we firstly see, I'm going to play quickly and then I'll pause it.
لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم.
So the first verse says that Allah's testimony is that there is no God except He. That is also the testimony of the angels and those who possess knowledge while standing up for justice. No God is there except He, the wise and noble. So the first point in this paradigm that this transcendent society puts forward is that there is a noble, wise, kind, almighty, all-powerful being that is in control and in authority. Let's continue.
إن الدين عند الله الإسلام وما اختلف الذين أوتوا الكتاب إلا من بعد ما جاءهم العلم بغيا بينهم ومن يكفر بآيات الله فإن الله سريع الحساب.
Second verse in this series of verses says, most certainly the life choice, the deen accepted by Allah is Islam, harmonious compliance. Those who were given the code suffered division only after clear knowledge reached them from mutual rivalry. The fact is that for anyone in denial of Allah's directives, surely Allah's reckoning comes quick. So in the first verse we saw that is the recognition of a supreme being. Now in this verse, the model is elaborated, the paradigm is elaborated on, and Allah places all the acceptable or the ideal life choice or deen. Some people call it a way of life, and religion is also a word. I like the word life choice. It means the primary choice for your life, the system that you will operate, the code in accordance of which you will operate. In this verse, it is announced that the perfect code that you should operate in accordance with is the code of harmonious compliance, Islam. Islam being natural compliance with nature, compliance with human nature, compliance with the order of the universe. And then it carries on to say that when there is strife in society, when there is division in society, it is because of a denial of that harmonious compliance with a natural order. We'll continue to the next verse.
فإن حاجوك فقل أسلمت وجهي لله ومن اتبعني وقل للذين أوتوا الكتاب والأميين أأسلمتم فإن أسلموا فقد اهتدوا وإن تولوا فإنما عليك البلاغ والله بصير بالعباد.
In this verse, the third in the series of verses, the challenge of those who embrace or who affirm the paradigm of the Quran is clarified. And generally what is seen here is that those who reject the paradigm will argue and come and challenge the ideas that the Quran put forward. But then there's a response here. Ask let me just read it quickly for those who have not, everyone can't read on the screen. If they argue with you, it says here in this verse, tell them, I submit my entire being to Allah, and so to those who follow me. Ask the Bible followers as well as the inhabitants of the mother tongue, are you in submission? If they submit, they will surely find the right way. Should they refuse, however, then know that your only duty is to deliver the message. Allah has clear sight of the true devotees. The idea of the vanguard here, the vanguard meaning those who embrace the paradigm of the Quran, the transcendent paradigm, those who embrace the notion of Allah the Almighty, the creator of the universe, those who embrace the notion of truth with a capital T, they are under no obligation to impose a righteous society. All they have is to offer the paradigm. If they submit, society will taste the benefits of this paradigm. But should they refuse, then the duty of those in the vanguard are merely to issue the message. Your duty is only to deliver the message. I think that brings a lot of calm to those who feel, anxiety about the way that society is going, and so what can we do, and so what is the solution, and we feel a sense of helplessness. Here this verse comes to clarify that those of you who are in the forefront, who are offering society the ideal society, the ideal paradigm, you only have a duty to deliver that message, to present that message as an alternative. And what people decide, if they want to decide to reject Allah, to reject truth with a capital T, then they will experience the hardship that comes with rejection.
إن الذين يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون النبيين بغير حق ويقتلون الذين يأمرون بالقسط من الناس فبشرهم بعذاب أليم.
This verse then continues, most certainly those who reject the directives from Allah contained in the Quran, of course, and unjustly murder the prophets or murder people who call for justice. And the words there were يَأْمُرُونَ الَّذِينَ يَقْتُلُونَ الَّذِينَ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْقِسْطِ. Those who call for justice, let them know of a painful penalty to come.
أولئك الذين حبطت أعمالهم في الدنيا والآخرة وما لهم من ناصرين.
Here in this verse, the translation, let me first cover that. They are the people who will find their schemes rendered void in this world and in the world hereafter. No disciples will they have then. So the powerful that I've mentioned to you earlier on were generally the guardians of the unjust society, the protectors and defenders of the unjust society, the elite. The Quran addresses them directly, those who demand more than they due. They are dealt with in terms of this verse, and it is stated here. The people who try and obstruct, who kill those who call for justice, who kill the prophets, the elite in other words, or those who are in cahoots with the elite, or those ignorant people who side with the elites, they will have their schemes rendered void in this world. The unjust system is unsustainable. So they will, merely for a set time, will their unjust system survive. And by nature, that unjust system will be rendered void in this world. But then it continues, this verse, and it introduces the world hereafter. And it then warns them that in the world hereafter, which the Quran announces here, if you didn't know it, there is a world hereafter. There you will be bare. You will have no money, no soldiers, no armies, no supporters in that world. There you will face justice on your own.
ألم تر إلى الذين أوتوا نصيبا من الكتاب يدعون إلى كتاب الله ليحكم بينهم.
Okay, what I'll do is we're trying to maybe just save a bit of time, so I'm going to read the verses myself. And where are we? Let me just get to that. I just want to speed it up a bit. So the Qiraat is available for you on the site. These whole set of verses in a separate YouTube video, so you're very welcome to find it. It's chapter 3. So here we go. So let's just continue manually here. Here in this verse, and I'm going to read the English quickly. Take note also those who were presented with a portion of the code, the law. They were offered an opportunity to settle matters between themselves using the book of Allah, but there was a camp from amongst them who declined the book and stood in rejection. In other words, the book is offered as a means to govern and to structure the affairs of society. Next verse. That because they state, now an argument is presented against those who deny the book of Allah as a suitable basis from which to structure society. And this is the argument. That because they state the flames will afflict us only for a limited period. So this obviously refers to a section of society that believes in the idea of the Creator, believes in the hereafter, but has a doctrinal difference here where they believe that the punishment in the hereafter is a limited punishment. So here the Quran answers them, but the beliefs they invent make them deluded in their deen, in their life choice. How will they fare, however, on that day of which there is no doubt, when the earnings of every person will be settled, when no right will be denied to them? فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جَمَعْنَاكُمْ لِيَوْمٍ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ وَوُفِّيَتْ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. Quran, Allah says here, once again, in the society, putting forth this argument, Allah asks the question, are they prepared? How will they do in this world hereafter when they will be brought to book for their doings in this world? When they will be dealt with perfectly justly, it says, وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. In other words, they will be dealt with, no rights will be denied to them. They will get only what they deserve. Will you be okay when you are given what you deserve? That is the question. So here, switching back to the vanguard, to those who are the affirmers, those who are the ones that have embraced and adopted the paradigm that the Quran presents, the Creator, the ultimate truth. It then goes back to that vanguard and says, declare then Allah, holder of all dominion, you award authority to whom you please, and you remove authority from whom you please. You raise in glory whom you please, and you humble whom you please. All good comes from you, and for certain you have power over everything. Can you see what is happening here? Remember, I've introduced this discussion by saying that Western secular society is premised, is built on the interests of the people. What are we seeing here now? What are we seeing here now? Allah is the holder of all dominion. You award authority to whom you please. What we are witnessing in this verse is that instead of a people-centric society, instead of a society that elevates people to the highest authority, Allah says now, قُلْ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكُ الْمُلْكِ. Allah is the owner of all authority and dominion. So we raise not people as the absolute power in society, but we raise Allah, the creator, the fashioner, the sustainer of the universe. We place Him at the center of society. Continuing the praising of Allah and explaining the role and the station of Allah, the verse continues. تُولِجُ اللَّيْلَ فِي النَّهَارِ وَتُولِجُ النَّهَارَ فِي اللَّيْلِ وَتُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَتُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ وَتَرْزُقُ مَنْ تَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah says, you pass night into day, and you pass day into night. You render life from the lifeless, and you render lifeless that which had life. You sustain whom you please with no account to any. I take you back to our original introduction. The one we are moving the frame of reference now from beyond this life and from you and my existence. We are moving the frame of reference now to the living and the unborn and the dead. So in other words, before you were here, you were composed, you were animated from lifeless substances. You were always there. We were always there. The molecules in your body and in my body weren't created when we were born. These molecules were always there. Every carbon molecule, every water molecule in your body has been there since the creation, since the origin of the universe. They've only come together in your body and they've constituted a life form. When you were conceived as a baby, those molecules interacted and they became a new life, and you were shaped in the womb of your mother, and that life emerged after 9 months and was a new human being that dwelled on the earth. And when you die, you will dwell on the earth until your life will become spent and exhausted, and you will then be rendered back. Those molecules will travel back into the earth, and they will move to some other creature. They will become part of a tree. They will become part of an insect. The molecules that are now visiting your makeup and forming you and being you, those molecules will travel. And that is what I want to offer you as an explanation of this powerful verse, that as the day becomes night, so the lifeless become life, and so that which has life will become lifeless again. And it is a beautiful way of placing us in a broader paradigm, that we are definitely not just, our interests in society can definitely not be reduced to my life and your life. Then this verse says, those who make affirmation are not to take deniers of truth as allies above fellow affirmers. Those who do this should expect nothing from Allah, except if you do so as a matter of caution to restrain them, the deniers. But Allah issues you with a caution of Himself, as the onward journey is to Him. Can you see the theme is continuing? The last sentence there says, but Allah issues you with caution of Himself, because we are being told that I, me and myself are not God. There's a God outside of I, me, and myself. It is Allah. And that is where the journey is onward towards. Another point that is made in this verse is that those who are in the vanguard, those who are the defenders of truth, those who are the defenders of justice, are not to become allies and bosom buddies and friends and protectors of those who are anti-truth, anti-justice, and anti-Allah. We cannot become allies and partners and defenders and protectors, because the word wali, لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء. We cannot become awliya. Awliya means a protector, ally, friend, bosom friend of those who reject justice, those who reject truth. Continuing. Tell them the following, and I'm going to translate, to make the language slightly easier, to make it more relatable. The word kul means say, but in fact it means, when the Prophet is told kul, it means tell the people, tell them this. Whether you keep secret or real intentions or reveal it, Allah is aware of it. His awareness encompasses all that is in the heavens and on earth, and Allah remains powerful over everything. Fitting in with the earlier setup that I've introduced, human beings will relate to each other based on self-interest. But we are never to know what the interests of the agenda of an individual is. It might be that the person has a noble intention and would camouflage acts of corruption and acts of destruction within a well-designed public relations scheme. In the West, in Western secular society, you have these exploitative elite organizations that exist solely to exploit and plunder the masses of people. But they spend millions and millions on a PR so that the campaign of plunder and exploitation comes to us as a kind and reasonable campaign. And now, let me take an example. If you look at the liquor industry, a destructive industry, an industry that is responsible for death, for social disintegration, for all sorts of tragedies. In fact, during the COVID lockdown, we very, very practically saw how the liquor industry, when it was stopped by our government, it immediately reduced the crime rate, the trauma in hospitals, etc., etc. So, but when you look at the liquor industry, how they manage their public relations, it is always glamorized. It is always presented to us, to you and me, as a reasonable, pleasurable, kind, fine undertaking. So what they do is, the motives are dirty, the presentation looks reasonable, and that is now at a social level. At an individual level, the same happens. The young girl who meets a gentle, attractive guy never knows the motives and the intentions of this man. And Allah clarifies here, within this greater paradigm, is that no secret can be kept from the Almighty. If we operate with hidden, corrupt agendas, it will not stay a secret. That day will come, next verse, that day will come when each person will be presented with every good they have done and also every evil. Then they will wish that it could be removed far away from them. Allah issues you with caution of Himself, and Allah is caring towards the devotees. Once again, fitting in with this picture that I'm painting, with this ideal society, is that our actions and our interactions and our work and our efforts and all our dealings with others, my wife, my children, my brothers, my sisters, my society, the people that I work for, the people that work for me, my neighbors, that is the arena where I produce good and evil. Every day, please people, I want to rectify a problem, a misconception that you've been left with, is that all good deeds are done on a musalla and on a prayer mat, and all good deeds are done in the mosque. Nonsense. The arena where we produce good and evil is the every moment of our waking lives. Every moment of your waking lives is an opportunity to gather good or to produce evil. And so every morning when you awake, you have the option, you have free choice to collect good deeds or to be kind to yourself, to others, to the people who have passed on, to the people that will be born. Remember, we are now talking about a much broader frame of reference. So if you're going to plant a tree, maybe nobody will get benefit from that tree, because it might take 20 years for that tree to bear fruit. But the goodness in that deed is valid in the face of in the eyes of Allah, because it is producing some kind and good benefit to those who might come after you. Okay, let's just look at the final verse. I think there's another last one after this. Tell them this: if it is so that you really love Allah, then follow me. In return, Allah will love you while remediating your failings. I'm going to give the Arabic. وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. For Allah remediates out of kindness. وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. A message to those now that are embracers, that are affirmers of the paradigm, of the truth, of the Quran, of Allah, is it's not enough that you love Allah. Please, that is also a problem here. We don't say that if you love Jesus, if you love Allah, you will be saved. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Because what if you love Jesus and you love Allah, but you hurt your fellow human beings? You hurt your husband, you hurt your wife, you hurt your children, you create damage, you damage wherever you go, you cause harm and damage. So it's not sufficient. To love Allah means becoming an agent for Allah. It means aligning to the values which Allah presents to you in this Holy Quran. The values of kindness, compassion, and in particular, the verse also says here, then follow me. So, the verse introduces the concept of leadership here. Because if you're introducing the concept of followership, fattabi'uni. There's the Arabic. It says fattabi'uni. In other words, when you are telling people to follow somebody, and this is the instruction here to the Prophet in this verse, to the Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu wassalamu ala alihi. What you are saying is that follow the Prophet, follow the messenger, follow the leader, follow the person in charge if you love Allah. So an important new idea coming in this verse, and that is the idea of followership. And the corollary of followership is leadership. You can't have followership without leadership. How are you going to have followership if you don't have leadership? So I just want to leave that thought there. The ideal society which the Quran presents is a society where there is healthy followership and healthy leadership. And the other important idea that comes out of this verse, we're going to conclude after this, is that when you love Allah and you embrace the leadership put there by Allah, when you embrace the A'imma, the Imam that Allah is satisfied with, not the king and the sultan, but the Imam as Allah has explained the Imam, those who are the defenders of the weak, the upholders of justice, those leaders. When you embrace those leaders and you love Allah, يَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. Now here the traditional translation would be Allah will forgive your sins. But an expanded meaning that I'm offering you here, and remember you can read many meanings, the Quran is a miracle, it has superimposed shades of meaning, you can draw 2-3 meanings out. In this particular one, it is that يَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ is, so even if you made a mistake, and even if you messed up a bit, because of your love, and because of your acceptance of the leaders of Allah, those mistakes, those errors will be remediated. So society will not face disaster because of those errors. In other words, society can overcome human error. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense? If you love Allah, if you follow the leaders that are placed there by Allah, that are defenders of the weak, of the oppressed, of justice, of truth, then even if there are mistakes, so even if there's a divorce, so even if there's a car accident, so even if we have issues, so this society is not a perfect society, brothers and sisters. It's not a society of milk and honey. That is not what the Quran is offering us here. It's not saying that when you follow the Quran there will be no issues in society. What it does say is that those issues will be surmountable. We will be able to still generally create a workable, fair, just society, even if there are weaknesses within people. And we have weaknesses. Wallahu Ghafur Rahim, because Allah does remediate out of kindness. Final verse. Tell them this too, for that mistake. Obey Allah and the Messenger, but should they turn away, then know that Allah has no love for the deniers of truth. Again, the earlier point that was made was, tell them, obey Allah and the Messenger, أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ فَإِن تَوَلُّوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْكَافِرِينَ. So this is the expanded now. We just mentioned, now the previous verse mentioned that we should follow the leader, the just leader. Here it now continues and says you have to obey Ati'ullah wa Rasul and the messenger. In other words, the messenger being the messenger in the time of the Nabi, the Imam, the just Imam in the time after the Nabi, or the just governance, the government, the just authority. We use the word Imam, but you might as well use the word the just authority put in place. Could be the government. Obey Allah and obey the just government. If that government is a defender of the weak, destroyer of the oppressors, then we obey that government. But remember always, if you turn away, then you lose the love of Allah. I will conclude there, brothers and sisters. I think we've done our pilot this evening. Maybe here and there snag. I don't think you've seen my face. Let me just see if you are able to see me yet. At least I can greet you. Yeah. video capture device. Okay, so I'm going to add this now. Let me add this one. Hope you can see me there. If you can see me, let's make it bigger. So that is it, brothers and sisters. To summarize, let me just summarize for you. We've now looked at these verses in Surah Ali Imran, and these verses, I've told you that it presents us with an excellent alternative or the means to critique our modern Western secular society, which is, as I said, based on human personal interests. So the society that we experience every day, it's about what is your right and what is my right, and how do we navigate through those rights of yours and the rights of mine. Quranic society says no, but that will lead you into problems. Whether it's a Marxist or whether it is a capitalist or liberal society, it doesn't matter. Both will lead you into problems. You know, the Marxist one, the socialist society, might be slightly better because it will offer the rights of the masses above the rights of the minority elite. But you know, the masses could also be wrong. The masses could also be an oppressor. I've seen societies where the masses become an oppressor. Look at India. In India, the 10% of whatever Muslims are experiencing tough times under the Modi regime, under the Modi government. And so even if you say a socialist country will be better, it will not be necessarily a just society. What the Quran offers, what the paradigm is that the Quran offers, is a society that embraces the beyond. We embrace the beyond our lives. We embrace the lives before us, the lives to come after us, as well as the space that we live in and the space and the time that will come after us, beyond this planet and beyond this existence. And it firmly places the creator of the universe at the center of that universe. The Quran society, the Quran paradigm does not say only those who believe in the Quran are to be legitimate. No, the Quran accepts dissent, and it accepts that there will be those who are not supportive of the paradigm. But what it does do is it offers the entirety of humanity, the vanguard, the affirmers, the believers, as the people that are in a position to put forward that just society. I will end there. I thank you for being part of tonight's discussion, and we can only improve, we can only go better, inshallah. I hope you will join us next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.